Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Hello, my name is Candace Simar from Pequot Lakes, Minnesota, and I've written 3 historical novels set in Minnesota, 19th century. My third book is just coming out now in May. My first book was Abercrombie Trail, and it was a historical novel based loosely on my great-grandfather who drove the stage from Fort Snelling to Fort Abercrombie, Dakota Territory, right after the uprising. And so I started thinking what would have happened if he would have been here a few years earlier, driving that stage route. And so my adult children knew nothing about the Sioux Uprising, although Minnesota born and educated. And my son challenged me to write a book if I cared. And so I started researching and started writing Abercrombie Trail in 2001, and wrote it and rewrote it maybe a dozen times. Couldn't find an agent, couldn't sell it, and so a mentor suggested I write another book. And because I had done all the research on the Sioux Uprising, I decided to write another book about the Sioux Uprising using minor characters from Abercrombie Trail. And that one, I wrote it probably 2002, around in there, and wrote it and rewrote it, and wasn't having any success. And so I decided to model perseverance for my children and began my third book. And after I had 3 books written and revised more times than I care to remember, I was able to connect with a Minnesota publisher, North Star Press of St. Cloud, and they were interested in me and my work because I had 3 books written. I grew up hearing the stories of my family's immigration, and so my books are about Scandinavian immigrants who are composites of family members, but they are fictional characters, and then the history is as accurate as I could relate it. My third book, Birdie, is coming out now in May. It's very exciting. It has the characters from Abercrombie Trail, 11 years later, still suffering from the aftermaths of the Sioux Uprising, and also now the grasshoppers have started to plague Minnesota. The grasshoppers came in like a thunderstorm. It would be a huge cloud of these locusts, and they ate everything. They ate every green plant, every blade of wheat. They ate the garden stuff. People would throw their quilts over the tomatoes trying to spare them, and the grasshoppers ate the quilts. And it impoverished Minnesota. Writing is a solitary occupation. I've spent many years working on these books, just sitting at home and writing them, and not knowing if people would get them or ever get a chance to read them or understand what I was trying to say. And it's been just a pure delight to be visiting different libraries and historical societies and doing book signings all over the state and finding people who relate to what I write and who feel validated by it. It's been a real enjoyment for me this time of my life. I also find a lot of people who love the Scandinavian culture in my books, and that's been so fun. I grew up Scandinavian in a small farm community where everyone was Scandinavian, and it's been really fun to write some of those experiences growing up in my books and then having the stories resonate with other people. My favorite character in my books is Evan Jacobson, who is loosely based on my great-grandfather, whose name was Evan. His name was spelled E-V-E-N, which makes it very difficult to use in an English-speaking book. So I changed the spelling to E-V-A-N, which is more American. But he came as a young immigrant very early for the Scandinavian immigration. He came right during the Civil War, and because the men were off fighting the war, he was able to get a job driving the stage. And while he was driving the stage, he met my great-grandmother, who came to America as an indentured servant and was working in Minneapolis for a Lutheran minister. She worked many years to pay off her $56 passage. And so after she served her indentured time, they married and were the parents of my grandfather. I'm pleased that I could finish it because I know lots of writers, and I've been a writer a while now, and it's very easy to start something and very hard to finish it. And it's a good thing I'm a stubborn Norwegian, because I would have given up many times, except that my son had challenged me, and I told him I was going to write the book, and I could not give up. But it took many, many rewrites. I had a lot to learn, and a lot of perseverance just to see it through.
If you enjoyed this segment of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org. If you have segment ideas pertaining to North Central Minnesota, contact us at legacy@lptv.org. Common Ground is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund by the vote of the people on November 4th, 2008.